I've already opened and closed the app probably 6 times already just to keep getting the same stupid warning message. Oh my God, like, this is so dystopian.
It's been dystopian. It's been dystopian for years.
First of all, I feel pathetic that I am freaking out like this over an application being unavailable on my phone, but also like, this has been a massive part of our life for the last 6 years. And normally when something happens, I would get on TikTok and start complaining, and I can't even do that. I feel like disconnected. I feel cut off from the world and my community. Now I'm rooting for Trump. Ew! God, like, make America fucking great again, I guess. God.
So what the right has been screaming about for years at this point, about dystopia, about censorship, their free speech being imposed, the importance of free speech, now we are seeing this entirely new community understanding the implications of their free speech being imposed on, and the implications of all of these things that the right has been dealing with for years. It's pretty crazy to see this happening, whichever side of the argument you stand on, whether you think that TikTok is bad for Americans to be exposed to, or you think that it's just a social media app. The thing about it is, whatever you feel about James Charles, he has 40 million followers. He has followers in a completely different demographic than would usually be like following Trump, for example. This is somebody who has a big female base, the gay community, Gen Z. It's just a hugely different demographic than would usually be kind of looking to Trump for help. So this is a really, really big thing for him to have come out and said something like this. I think these few weeks have been pivotal. The left is falling to pieces. We also have it with the Palisade fires, where Hollywood is turning against the Democrats. We also have Bill Maher, who is very anti-Trump. He's known for calling the Democrats out, though, when he feels they've gone too far. And he had some things to say as well.
New rule, we may not be able to do much about the weather, but we do need a better plan for putting out a burning city than waiting for rain. Axios ran a story on how getting the water out of the hydrants in Pacific Palisades was more complicated than it seems. I'm sure it is. That's why I pay 13% of my income in this state every year to people who I assumed were working on things like this. When asked why so many of the hydrants in the Palisades ran out of water, Governor Newsom said the local folks are trying to figure that out. Yeah, you got to do that before the fire. At least in the Palisades, the hydrants were still there. 300 other ones around the city are just gone, stolen for parts. One of the 3 reservoirs for the Palisades was offline at the one time of year when it was most needed. Karen Bass, the Nero of American politics, was fiddling in Ghana while the city burned, and later placed the blame on 8 months of negligible rain and winds that have not been seen in LA in at least 14 years. Yeah, that's not that long a time. Maybe look in the history books to see how our ancestors handled it back in 2011. There were no reductions that were made that would have impacted the situation. The fire chief here had a slightly different take. She said, "We are screaming to be properly funded. And yes, the budget was cut, and it did impact our ability to provide service. And by the looks of all the fire engines in the boneyard out of service because we didn't fix them, she's right. Exposed power lines keep causing fires and keep not getting buried underground because it's expensive. I've heard people say, do you want to pay more taxes to fund this? No. I want you to use the exorbitant taxes you already collect to prioritize it. Power lines that cut through Topanga weren't upgraded because it endangered an herb. You know what the absolute worst thing for the environment is? Wildfires. The smoke from just the 2 in 2020 wiped out 18 years of carbon reduction in the state. Do I think a lesbian can do the job? Of course I do. And maybe she's the best person for the job. Or maybe they really wanted a lesbian in that job, and she's just the best lesbian for the job. And with essential services, that's not good enough.
This is crazy because the Democrats, it's almost like they're trying to just push as much through as they can that they were maybe planning to try to push through in the 4 years that they were planning to be in power still. So now it's like just everything going through, and it's getting to the point where even the people living in Hollywood are going like, oh, this is dodgy. Like, it kind of seems like these fires were done on purpose. You apparently have even BlackRock knocking on people's doors already, being like, I want to buy your property. And the level of incompetence is just kind of unbelievable to some people, to the point that they say, yeah, I don't know, this seems almost like you did this on purpose. I really have believed that in the last few months, the people who are still willing to support Kamala Harris, Biden, I believe that it's because they are not being very clearly affected. They can't see how they're being affected by the policies. Many of those people are wealthy enough that they didn't feel the effects of inflation in the last few years. They're living in a bubble. People don't care about things until it affects them personally. And Hollywood is now being affected by this. Gen Z is being affected. And communities of people that just were not affected before are now feeling the impact. And that is the thing that makes people change. As soon as it starts hindering their lives is when they suddenly start going, oh wait, their bubble is bursting because the Democrats' policies are beginning to eat away at everything. It's not even deciphering between elites and non-elites now, wealthy and non-wealthy. It is just kind of eating everyone now. And that's where that was headed. That's the only way it could have gone. We also have an interesting thing with Meta, where there is common ground between the left and the right here. There is common ground between people who are against TikTok and for TikTok, because most people, from what I can tell, do not trust Meta and do not trust Mark Zuckerberg. And he seems to have been lobbying for this TikTok ban because obviously it would be beneficial for Meta. And of course, it pushes things further and further towards a monopoly where Meta is one of the only social media companies in America. So it's interesting because there's common ground there as well now, where majority of people agree they don't trust Mark Zuckerberg. And now you have the TikTokers are boycotting Meta.
Every single data point that comes from Meta platforms is being used to train Meta's AI.
Meta broke its lobbying record last year.
And they're also bringing to light the thing of Congress being corrupt. You have a lot of Congress who, once the bans on TikTok started floating around, they started buying up Meta.
One of the politicians who voted yes to ban TikTok is actively invested in their largest competitor. This is Texas Rep Mike McCall. He traded over $3 million in Meta shares just this year. McCall has been vocal about his opposition to TikTok, calling it an enormous threat to U.S. national security. How can we believe him when he's actively invested in their downfall?
Which of course leaves things open for a conflict of interest. Of course, all of Congress was voting for the ban of TikTok if they were all buying up Meta, you know? You've had people on TikTok who are, you know, realizing how much the current setup in government is just so corrupt. Now they care. If it takes an app being banned, a social media app being banned, for people to realize the importance of free speech, of taking corruption out of the government, etc., then so be it. I'm just happy that some people are actually realizing how important all of this stuff is. There are people who are very much wary of TikTok and the fact that there is potential for China to be spying on American citizens. And then you have people who are a little bit more like, well, really, how much harm can China do by spying on people who are just making dance videos, etc.? Do you know what I mean? And RFK Jr. gave his input on this at some point, actually.
We've got a Congress now that is saying they're going to do a patriotic deed by getting rid of TikTok. TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, and the Chinese are probably using it to find, what, American teenage girls are putting on their hair and stuff, and really scary stuff. And Congress is flexing its muscles. Well, you know what? There's a whole generation of kids for which TikTok is an entryway business, and it's employing hundreds of thousands of people. And these are kids that don't have that many options anymore because we've created a world like that for them. And now we're getting rid of TikTok because we say it's being used by spies. Well, guess what? So is Facebook, but it's the CIA instead of Chinese spies. But and so is Instagram and YouTube and Google and I mean, I would ask you this question, or any of you. Are you more worried that the Chinese are spying on us and propagandizing us, or are you more worried that the CIA is spying on us and propagandizing us? I'm not saying I know the answer to that question. I'm saying it's something we all ought to be thinking about. I'm just as scared of our intelligence agencies. I think they can do more damage to us. And, it's like if you have if you have an abuser out of your home at school, that's pretty bad. But what if you have one inside your home?
Even in this situation here, like, do you trust Mark Zuckerberg with your information more than you trust the Chinese? Like, that's a genuine, important question to ask. I think many people would say, I don't know. I'm not sure if I trust either. And most people are in a position nowadays where they don't trust anyone at all who's in power and who has influence. And it's an interesting one. Either way, no matter what, it is incredible the marketing that this has done for Trump. I mean, the message seems to be that is posted on TikTok when people try to open it. It actually mentions Trump. Sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the US. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with the US on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. That is mental. This is like next level marketing for Trump either way. It's crazy. This law was signed into effect by Biden, and it was seemingly brought to Congress in a bipartisan way. Anyway, there's so many different layers to this, so I'll be very interested to hear your take on it all. Do you think this is good for MAGA, bad for MAGA, and what do you think is going to happen with TikTok? Thanks. See you next time.